Give me a minute. Hope everybody having a good day today. Keeping it peaceful. Had a good day on campus. But every day is history. So I'm just gonna illuminate two history books that some of us may have known or some of us may have not. Just waiting for a couple of my nobles to pop in. Tell them I'll give everybody a grace period. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, family. Give me 1 second, my brothers. And we getting right into this science. I didn't know I had so much left. Give me 1 second. We're gonna kick the ballistics in 1 second. Let me get all my everything set up. We're gonna have a good history class today. So everybody be patient. We got, let's see how many more minutes we got. 30 more seconds and we're gonna get started. First, I hope everybody having an amazing day. I know I am. Had an amazing day of teaching today on campus with my students as I continue to tutor students in real life. It's an honor and a privilege to tutor all God's people. But today, no, see, maybe, let me see, maybe that's better. I'm going to illuminate two books One is The Five Negro Presidents by J.A. Rogers. And the other one is Hubert Henry Harrison, The Black Socrates by John G. Jackson. Gotta get my drink closer to me. So the first one I want to illuminate is The Five Negro Presidents. The Five Negro Presidents by J.A. Rogers. And the five Negro presidents, according to what white people said they were, by J.A. Rogers. On the cover is President Harding and his parental granduncle, Oliver Harding, Abbott's Monthly newspaper, September 1932. See? You see? So, this was done at Wesleyan University Press, Middleton, Connecticut. In 1963, when Attorney General Kennedy and Senator Javits said there might be a Negro president in the next 30 or 40 years, fact, most outspoken of the big magazines replied there was already one, and in its January and February 1964 issue had an article, America's First Negro President. It named Warren G. Harding as the one and had affidavits from elderly whites who knew the Harding family. But before Harding, 3 other presidents had been loudly proclaimed by white people as being of Negro ancestry: Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, and Abraham Lincoln. The portraits of none of the above mentioned show the slightest degree of Negro strain. But that is certainly not proof. Even before the Revolution, many of the Negro ancestry had become so white that whites who had been kidnapped and sold as Negroes could not prove they were really whites, the more so that some of them were darker than the bleached Negroes. It's a book called The Forgotten Cause of the Civil War by Tinsler. I think it's about like $700 on Amazon. I got the books. I lectured it in college. Because if you had a tittle of that blood in you, you was a Negro. I'm telling you. J. Edgar Hoover know what I'm talking about. Children were especial victims as late as 1858. White orphan asylums sold their children at public auctions, and a picture of the time shows a white child being tanned to sell him into slavery in the South. Harper's Weekly, January 30th, 1864, has pictures of emancipated white slaves. When I talk about white cargo and they were white and they were slaves, but it's more history than that. I'm just painting a small picture. The most famous case of the times was that of Selma Muller, a white German girl who was sold as a Negro slave. Her relative brought suit, but the Supreme Court of Louisiana held she was a Negro. It wasn't until her birth certificate was dug up in Germany that her real race was discovered. In fact, Selman, who had been married to a Negro, believed herself to be one also. What writers of the time said of this is given in My Sex and Race, Volume 2, in the chapter, White People Sold as Negroes. Even some aristocrats were of Negro ancestry. George Washington tells of Colonial Catesby Coke, C-O-C-K-E, Virginia senator, whose Negroid features made him hurry away nervously from Washington's home when he saw there an old Negro to whom he bore a striking resemblance. Therefore, when the political opponents of a presidential candidate said he was a Negro, many accepted it without question. It is usual for white writers to condemn offhand the statement that any president could possibly have any degree of Negro strain whatsoever, but it is not possible without minute tracing of ancestry to find whether one is pure white. Here's the case of one who started as a Negro, became white, and then voluntarily became a Negro again. He is T. John McKee, whose case attracted national attention and whose picture appeared on the front page of the New York Daily News, February 20th, 1948. McKee, grandson of a Negro millionaire of the name, had crossed the color line, gone to Yale, and studied law. That's where you get the Boulay brothers. Think about it. He lived for 45 years as a white man and had been a successful Wall Street lawyer, said the news. He had also married a white woman and had children by her, just like the Black Hitler of Harlem. I ain't knocking brothers' work. Research the Black Hitler of Harlem. I don't knock the work. But then in 1948, he saw an ad issued by an orphan society of Philadelphia for any living grandsons of McKee. The latter, in his will, had left $800,000 to found a military school for white and Negro orphans, with the provisions that if this was not done, the money with interest should go to his last living grandson. This attorney McKee discovered was no other than himself, and he promptly became a Negro again to tune the fortune of $1,240,000 with interest on the original sum. Here's another case, this time from English royalty. David Michael, Marquis of Milford Haven, cousin of the Queen of England, has some Negro strain, but positively does not show it. On the paternal side, he is descended from Queen Victoria. On the maternal, from Pushkin. Y'all know who Pushkin is, Alice Pushkin, Russia's great poet. Pushkin, in turn, is descended from Abram Petrovich Hannibal, an unmixed Sudanese Negro. I'm trying to tell y'all, who had been adopted by Peter the Great of Russia. Just like when I talk about Angelo Solomon, the first Moorish Mason, and whom Pushkin wrote in his Negro of Peter the Great. Hannibal's descendants married also into the German, Russian, Dutch, and royal families. David Michael's mother was Najida, daughter of Grand Duke Michael of Russia. In some southern states, this member of English royalty would be a Negro. Virginia law provides that if royalty would be a Negro, Virginia law provides that if any Negro ancestry is ascertainable, one is a Negro. If this had been proven of Thomas Jefferson also, he would be one. And when the descendants of Victoria and Pushkin married, the Hearst newspaper had a feature on it saying that a cold black baby might yet be born in the English royal family. This was based on the belief that either couple has the slightest degree of Negro strain, a cold black child might be born. That's Deborah's Piggery, page 53, Burke's Piggery, page 1668. Therefore, if Negro strain can be found in European royalty, which is so exclusive, why not in the American colonies, where there was so much intermixing? Winston Churchill, grandmother, was 1/4 American Indian, which William Joyce, rightly or wrongly, claims wasn't Indian but Negro. That, therefore, these American presidents might have had some Negro strain is possible. Did some person who knew the intimate details of their ancestry tell of them? There are very many instances of whites being exposed as Negroes. Interracial intercourse was very common. George Washington had a Negro son and Jefferson mulatto daughter. Negro males were also named as co-responders in white divorce cases, as Helen Cathero tells in her judicial cases concerning American slavery and the Negro. Mixed marriages were also legal in several southern states, including Virginia and Mississippi. In Tennessee, mixed couples had to pay a tax. Thomas Jefferson, the chief attack on Jefferson was in the Johnny Cake Papers. In a general denunciation of him, it said, and I quote, Thomas Jefferson, son of a half-breed Indian, squaw, served by a Virginia mulatto father. It also called him a half-nigger. Opposition papers took it up. It is difficult to find matter with specific details of that assertion now. Albert J. Knox, Jefferson, page 233, 1926. Taylor and Middleton's The Eagle Screams, pages 67, 77. This was written in 1936. And David C. Coyle's Ordeal of the Presidency, page 29, written in 1960. And David S. Browder, New York Times Magazine, September 9th, 1964. Those are all references for you can research. Now we get to Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson's father and mother came from Ireland and were wretchedly poor. The Virginia Magazine of History, volume 29, page 191, says that Jackson was the son of a white woman who had intermarried with a Negro and that his eldest brother had been sold as a slave in California. What gave an air of truth to this was that the elder Jackson died before Andrew was born. His widow went to live on the Crawford farm where there were Negro slaves, and that one of these was Andrew's father. It was stressed that Andrew was conceived after the death of his supposed father, whose name he bore. Other mention can be found in David C. Doyle's Ordeal of the Presidency, page 127, 1960. Jacobson D. Affairs of Dame Rumors, page 190, 1943. This is like one of the pictures they drew back in the day. It's a caricature. Abraham Lincoln cartoon of 1860, original source not known, appears in David Broder's Ordeal of Presidency. And you can see how they got him looking like a woolly hair. Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln was said to be illegitimate son of a Negro by Nancy Hanks. In his campaign for the presidency, he was often referred to as a Negro by his opponents. He was even depicted as a Negro. He was called Abraham Africanus the First. What gave strength to this was that his hair was more Negroid than Caucasian. Just like when I talk about Mozart, and when I show you the hair, all that African style hair, it's just facts, man. A lot of the history books were whitewashed. That's why a lot of things were took out of the history books, and that's why a lot of stuff sit on the shelves. Man, I just come from peer-reviewed scholarly research. I'm not here to debate with anyone or argue with anyone. That's not my perspective or my job or even my passion. So, what's his color of his father? He said his face was round, his complexion swarty. So if you know what swarty mean, all in old writings, they talk about swarty. Just like I talk about Swarty Paya, aka Black Pete of the Netherlands. Research it. The hair black and coarse, eyes brown of him. Just like when you research what brunette mean. Brunette mean of a color, nobles. Brunette mean a copper color. Of himself, of dark complexion, with coarse black hair and dark eyes. Hendon, his closest friend and law partner, said he had very dark skin. His confidential, his servant, William Slade, an ex-slave and a Negro, was much fairer and had straight hair. Slade looked like a white man. Herndon said, and I quote, there was something about his, talking about Lincoln's, origin he never cared to dwell on. Other writers agreed with him. Coleman says, and I quote, all we know about President Lincoln's parentage and birth under his own hand are two brief records. One an entry in the Bible in his own handwriting that he was born on February 12, 1809, and the other a brief autobiography which he gave Mr. Jesse Arfel in December 1859 for a campaign sketch. Lincoln had a secret preying on his mind. Was it his race? His enemies harped on it. Herndon says of it, Lincoln often thought of committing suicide. Why? Did the knowledge of his mother's origin or his own press the thought of suicide upon him? That was in the hidden Lincoln, page 412 in 1938. Jacobson mentions a catechism by a Western author adducing evidence that Lincoln was of Negro ancestry. He also mentions another catechism by Chauncey Burr, who said it would not rebound to Lincoln's honor to have it proved that he is part Negro. For then, on the ground of a natural sympathy with his own race, we might find excuses for facts which we could never pardon a white man. Coleman, William, evidence that Abraham Lincoln was not born in lawful wedlock, 1899. Beveridge, A.J. Abraham Lincoln, Volume 1, page 4, 1928. In the Lincoln Encyclopedia, page 190, 1950. C. Jacobson, The Affairs of Dame Rumor, page 191. I'm just giving you all references. I don't want to go on and on with the references, but let me get back to the rest of the presidents. Vice President Hamlin, even more than Lincoln, was his vice president, Hannibal Hamlin, said to be a Negro. While United States Senator from Maine, he was often attacked from the floor because of his dark skin. To one opponent, he replied, I take my color from nature. You get yours from brandy bottle, which is more honorable. He was a special target for the South during the 1860 campaign, the more so as he was more outspoken against slavery than Lincoln. Editorials thundered against him and the dire effects of electing a free Negro to the vice presidency. R.B. Rhett, R-H-E-T-T, succession leader of the Charleston S.C. Mercury, July 9, 1863, said Hamlin is what we call a mulatto. He has black blood in him. The Northern people elected that man in consequence of his peculiarity. They designed to place over the South a man who has Negro blood. He wrote Lincoln that he understood that Lincoln had a mulatto boy. And if you will let us know what you will take for the boy, Hannibal, and your price is reasonable, we'll purchase him. The Chicago Democrat, June 4th, 1861 said, the constant theme in the South for the last 2 months has been the election of the abolitionist Lincoln and the free Negro Hamlin. As regards Hamlin's color, General Butler wrote the Secretary of War, Stanton, when he was gathering Negro troops for the Union Army, that he would have a regiment of mulattoes about the complexion of Vice President Hamlin. While the South was making much against Lincoln and Hamlin, one of the South generals, James B. Floyd, was being called a Negro in the North. Floyd had been governor of Virginia, a candidate for the presidency of the United States, and a former Secretary of War. A United States publication, Rebellion Record, Volume 3, page 47, written in 1862, has the following story about Floyd from the Springfield, Illinois Republican. A few years ago, a gentleman residing in Richmond, Virginia, gave a large dinner to some distinguished men, among whom was Floyd, then a rising man, but whose personal appearance indicated neither mental or physical superiority. He being a pursy, dark-complexioned man with crispy hair. Among the guests were 2 Indian chiefs, magnificent specimens of their race. Floyd, thinking to compliment them and make them at their ease, told them in a, condescending manner that he could boast of Indian blood, being descended from Pocahontas. One of the chiefs drawing himself up majestically and disdainfully, and with a look of contempt on his noble countenance, said in broken English, no, nigger. The confusion and dismay of Floyd was complete, and it required all the boasting politeness of Richmond to keep the other guests from laughing aloud. Now you got a mention of a Negro strain in Lincoln was received most unexpectedly in 1940, when RKO, for the world premiere of the motion picture. Remember, Abe Lincoln in the Illinois offered a prize for the American who most resembled Lincoln. The winner was Thomas Bomar, a lawyer and president of the National Postal Alliance. And when after submitting his picture, he appeared in person, the judges were amazed. It was as if Lincoln had come to life. But before the premiere, it was discovered that Bomar, who at all appearances was white, was a Negro. He was given the prize and sat in front row the opening night, but nothing was said of the contest. The dailies were silent about the affair, but the Interstate Broadcasting Company of New York mentioned it in January 27th, while the Negro press gave it wide publication. Friday, an outspoken white magazine also gave it several pages with pictures under the heading, Lincoln Snub at Lincoln Movie Show. It tells how the prize was privately awarded to a Negro, the man who looked most like Lincoln. March 15, 1940. Also J.A. Rogers, Sex and Race, Volume 2, page 379. You can see Bomar's picture in there. I did this stuff in college. That's why I tell my people, hey, my people I lost due to a lack of knowledge, because we just deal with propaganda and pictures. It's only one science. It's only one truth. And my people are lost to a lack of knowledge because we refuse to learn. A prophet and an angel come from amongst your own people. I mean, it's just like that. It's just like that. Warren G. Harding. Shortly before the 1920s election day, Americans were amazed to read in the Democrat papers that Harding was a Negro. Sometime before that, however, millions of, mimeograph broadsides had been distributed, saying that Harding's father is George Tyrone Harding, obviously a mulatto. He has thick lips, rolling eyes, chocolate skin, and that his mother, Phoebe Dickerson, a midwife of of whose ancestry little is known, was white. Attorney General Harry Daugherty says that there was discovered in the San Francisco mails along over 250,000 copies, and that President Wilson indignantly ordered the stuff destroyed. Thereafter, they were distributed by hand. With this also appeared a book by William Estabrook, Chancellor, Professor of Economics, Politics, and Social Sciences of Worcester College, Ohio. Now, I have all these books. Oh, peace and love. Peace and love, Taekwon. Peace, Noble. Peace and love. Peace and blessings to you, family, and your union with your empress. Peace and love. Chancellor based his assertions on interviews with aged residents of Marion, Ohio, who knew the Harding family. He had affidavits from them, as well as a letter from Senator Foraker, a friend of the Negro, who had written him asking him to give Harding's sister, Miss Votaw, V-O-T-A-W, employment in the public schools of Washington, D.C., of which Chancellor was the superintendent. She was given employment in a Negro school, then tightly segregated. She also lived among the Negroes there. Wendell P. Dabney, a Negro editor of a weekly and paymaster of the city of Cincinnati, said that Harding had been known as a Negro long before the circulars appeared, and that when he was first running for office, he used to tell Negroes he was colored. It's reported that when Republican leaders had called on Harding to deny the story, he said, "How should I know? Or how should I know? One of my ancestors might have jumped the fence." See, the Justice Department did its best to suppress the story. And one of its special investigators, Gatson B. Means, tells how he brought up Chancellor's book on Harding. I got the book, brought them to Washington in a guarded express car, and made a big bonfire of them on the grounds of the Boyd Mansion. The plates were also destroyed, he said. Strange Death of President Harding, pages 139 and 140. So thorough was the suppression that the book, Warren G. Harding, President of the United States, is one of the rarest books ever printed in America. And when I pulled this out at GCU, when I was doing my oral dissertation, their tongues dropped out their mouth. I said, come on, man, I have a plethora of wisdom. I'm transparent with everything. I tell people I'm 99 degrees. I'm part of the Philosophical Research Society. It's a level of wisdom that I know. I don't care who a person think he is or what they study or how many Instagram people they follow. They're not going to have the wisdom because there's a pantheon of wisdom. It's just what it is. And it's no disrespect to no one. It's just what it is. There are only 3 known copies. That's what they say. It is now said to be worth $200,000 a copy. But man, I told y'all, with my connections and with the people and the educators that I deal with, especially the scholars, and how I deal with the Royal Archives and a lot of other writing companies, and I deal with Harvard and Cambridge, and a lot of the people that I deal with have these books because they're educators. And the rare book room of the New York Public Library, they have a copy. Also in the Library of Congress, they have one. And then we have a copy at the Philosophical Research Society. But I have a copy of it. I was able to get copies of all rare books and copy them and make them available for my people. January to February 1964 reproduces copies of some of the sworn affidavits of aged whites who knew Harding's ancestry. It also says that inquiries made by Dr. H.F. Alderfer and Samuel Hopkins Adams, among the person who swore to the affidavits, showed that such persons still held to what they had said about Harding being a Negro. President. The fifth president said to be of a Negro ancestry would not be named here. I'm just quoting the book. I'll teach on this later. There seems to be no published research on his ancestry, and in this case, Harding. My first, intimation of it was from a white woman in a cafe in Latin Quarter of Paris, where Americans met nightly to talk. I understood it had appeared in a French paper on the topic of race intermixture. On my return to America, I heard much of it in Washington and New York and was asked by many audiences if it was true, but the only published mention I ever saw of it was in the Baltimore Afro-American, where one of its Negro columnists said it was a smear. So far as I know, it was based on a photograph of the president's mother, and uncertain of those of the president's. The portrait of his mother, to those acquainted with Negroid pigment, does show Negro ancestry. Almost everyone who sees it, without prompting or knowing who she is, says she is colored. All were amazed when they heard who she really is. She is Virginia born. And the features of this president also do show some Negroid strain in his more informal pictures, especially too in the possession. You can pull these up. I have them. I got them from the Royal Libraries, from the Royal Archives. When I was doing my oral dissertation, I had to do extensive research. But some of his pictures bear a striking resemblance of two well-known Negroes. As for color photographs, often are quite different from the real color of the subject. Just like I told you how they whitewash the history books. See, a lot of stuff when I tell people, man, this is an elevation. When I teach at the colleges, when I teach at the universities, I teach this, man. Peace, Doc. Peace, Dre. I say, man, it's an elevation. It's a certain wisdom. If I wasn't a teacher or a scholar and an elder, how would I be able to teach this in academia, in college, and have brotherhood, and teach people that don't look like me? This is no secret. This is sacred wisdom. It's different. Maccabees tell you how the heathen whitewash the history books. This is very system. This is a systematic, how can I say, a mental game that we playing with each other and with our children. In conclusion, the fact that these 5 presidents could be Caucasian to some and Negro to others, but shows how ridiculous it is burning questions of race. Here go a picture of, they say, Alexander Hamlin, drawn from Life by Peale, New York Public Library collection. Hamlin was darker in color than the picture shows, but note his woolly hair. I'm going to start showing y'all all this stuff that I'm going to take from the libraries. The hair is woolly. That's why they always whitewash the history books. I showed this in history. Man, my library is extensive than any of them. Oh, it ain't till 4:30, Noble. You ain't missed nothing. You ain't missed nothing, Noble. It ain't till 4:30 my time. You ain't missed nothing. Alexander Hamlin. Here go Alexander Hamlin, Caucanized, New York Public Library. Now here you go right here. You see how he look all European? See how he look all Europeanized from that picture? No disrespect to no one. Another noted American whose ancestry has long been in dispute is Alexander Hamilton. Native Virginia Islanders have insisted that he was colored. White American authors deny it. I'm telling you, even the book that I have by Vladimir Ivanov called Russian Icon, one of the most expensive books in the world, it told you it's no such thing as black. They were Russian icons. Just like David McRitchie tell you. What? You were ancient and modern Britons. I tell people, this is academia. Black was not used in 1st century to describe ethnicity. It was only used in theater when the black curtain come down. We've been lied to. We've been had. You've been fell for the Jedi mind trick. You've been hoodwinked. It's no disrespect. Man, I'm coming to you as love, as an educator, as a sheik, as a brother, as a map and a guide. You sitting here thinking it's some Willie Lynch. I done told you that's Fugazi. I done told you that's Eurocentric and Negrocentric propaganda. I told you it's no such thing as Willie Lynch. Period. It's propaganda. I educated that in college. I showed you that Roots is fake. It was all plagiarized by a European named Harold Kohler. And Harold Kohler is a low-level Freemason. I showed y'all that. And Alex Haley plagiarized all that. I showed y'all that. I demonstrated that. I demonstrated that already. I was just looking at my phone, y'all. Hold on. I got so much thing. I got off campus, man. I forgot to charge this phone up, but I'll put it on me since that phone is dying. Sorry about that, y'all. I had a busy day today, but I said I come here and I like to teach my people what I teach on college when I do lectures. So let's proceed. Among Virginia Islanders who say he was in Hubert Harrison's George Chancellor and Reverend Charles D. Martin, the latter says that his mother, Rachel Fawcett, was a mixed blood. The white woman and in the other West Indian colonies were very rare, Nevis being especially so, that the first mother of the colony were Negro slave women with the mulatto offsprings of their white masters. As it's the United States, the white master had children with the mulatto women, and their offsprings came to be listed as white. Remember when I say the sons do the business of the mother? When I get deeper in masonry, when I talk about the DAR, which is the Daughters of American Revolution, this is that they were known as white by law. I'll show y'all this. I'm telling you. We walking around with misnomers calling ourselves Negro, Black, and Colored, and don't even know the law. When I say, do you know the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment? No. Do you know what manumissions consist of? No. This is a resurrection. This is an education. Thank for the donation, Noble. John Fawcett, grandfather of Rachel, was listed in the early census as having 4 black females. The surest proof that Hamlin was of Negro ancestry, says Reverend Martin, is Hamilton's brother, James. Same mother, same father, also migrated to the United States, where he was treated as a Negro because of his dark color and hair. James, who was a merchant, was once refused a seat in a Broadway coach because of his dark complexion and is suing the company for heavy damages, quotes Reverend Martin from a letter to the Times. You see all this historical factness? In this article, Alexander Hamilton had Negro blood. He says the proof of this is not on the general belief that West Indians are of mixed blood, but is the statement of eyewitnesses who knew the boy before fame crowned the man. Reverend Martin adds that Hamilton's father was invited to the United States, but not his mother because her presence would have ruined his prospects. She loved her son, Alexander, too much. The father, the failure, would have been accepted, but the mother with the noble mind and the dark skin would create as much trouble as a colored delegate at a white convention. Her features were too pronounced. She was too typically Negro. That's in the Beth Tiffals, August 1916. This is recorded in history. The spokesman, January 1925, insists that he was of Negro extraction. Has never been successfully disputed. The statement had Negro blood, his mother being a Negro woman. I'm giving you reference again. Maurice Davey, professor of sociology at Yale University, says among notable Americans, the story persists that Alexander Hamilton, who was born on the islands of Nevis, was of Negro descent. Complete proof or disproof of this allegation is difficult since he was born out of wedlock. And if Hamilton was not a Negro, he certainly brought 2 Negro sons into the world. One married a very light-colored white female and lived as whites. Negroes in America Society, page 391. This was quoted in 1949. Research it. I have all the references. The strongest in support of Hamilton as white was Gertrude Atherton, leading novelist. She had written 2 novels glorifying him, The Hero and The Conqueror. I have those as well, both of which she claimed were his true and romantic story. Because of the insistent claim that he was a Negro, she decided to go to Nevis to prove that both his parents were unmixed whites. She said in the North American Review, volume 175, page 227 to 248 in 1902. I admired Booker T. Washington, and I wished the colored race all the success that is discovered, but inherited instincts are the strongest in us, and both enthusiasm and imagination will shrivel, were I obliged to accept as a fact that Hamilton had Negro blood in him. If Hamilton had colored blood, he would have several coal-black descendants before this, such being the freakish law of nature. She thinks the belief that Hamilton was a Negro was because he was a West Indian, and in the United States, such are regarded as Negroes. Also that there might have been another Alexander Hamilton of slave birth on the island. Gertrude Atherton herself was said to be of Negro ancestry. You see, Mitchell Broadus in his book on Hamilton says, and I have that as well, the statement he had Negro blood was without foundation. Hamilton's papers were burnt after his death. It is held that this was done in order to hide his alluded Negro strain. And the real truth of Hamilton's ancestry can be found in the earliest and the least known portrait of him. In this, he is seen with the kind of woolish hair common amongst light Negroes in the West Indies. There is also a certain fullness about the mouth that is somewhat Negroid. The portrait is by Peel. Research this, what I'm telling you, man. Man, when I be doing this stuff for them kids, when they be writing history, and they be like, I didn't know about this. When I show them that the Igbo and the Igbo, when I show them that they are the Jews and the European agree with what I'm saying, they be amazed. Incidentally, another personage who was the first more important than Hamilton and even Washington, who was said to be of Negro ancestry, was Colonial George William Fairfax, cousin of the great Lord Fairfax. Rupert Hughes says of him, Fairfax was popular, said to be a Negro. He was born in the Bahamas, and his mother was popular, and his mother was popular or popularly said to have been a dusky, beautiful woman. Washington's brother, Lawrence, married Fairfax's sister. You can find this in Life of George Washington, Volume 1, page 183, Volume 2, page 21, in 1926. For extensive documentation and bibliography on the racial intermixture that has gone on in the United States, see Sex and Race, Volume 2, and Nature Knows No Color Line. Also the Pass for White file in the West, 135th Street Library. And I have all those for all my brothers and sisters. Now is this. We have an extensive library. So the last, what I want to quote on is my brother right here. You probably can't see it. Oh, there you go. Hubert Henry Harrison, the Black Socrates. The Black Socrates. Man, I started bringing out so many scholars and educators that did things, just like you got the Black Hitler of Harlem back in the day. Just like you got Abdul Hamid Solomon. Just like you got Deuce Muhammad. I love our Prophet Noble Drew Ali, but you didn't think our Prophet Noble Drew Ali was inspired? You don't know who Deuce Muhammad Ali is? You don't know who Abdul Hamid Solomon? You didn't think it was educators and scholars before our brothers and sisters? And today, what about Sheikh Anta Diop? What about Ivan Van Sertima? What about Amos Wilson? What about Dr. Francis Cress Wilson? I mean, it's so many scholars. It's so many scholars. So we don't gravitate to one science where we miss the essence of the rest. What we do is illuminate and educate. That's why we're the Burning Bush Tabernacle Science Temple and School. We teach. And it takes brothers and sisters to be a part of it. We're going to get there, man. And all it takes is the people. We've been lied to. especially when it comes to that biblical science. No one can tell you what the Bible says if they're not willing to sit down with you and go through it from word, because the Bible is written in analogy, parable, and symbology. And if they don't know the Bible, if they don't know analogy, parable, and symbology, and they're not educated, and they don't know linguistics, all they're going to do is polypare it. And they're going to try to tell you what they believe. But you shouldn't care what they believe, because right under the word believe is a word called belief. Believing in things you can't prove. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Prove all things and hold fast to what is good. See, that's the problem with a lot of people. They arbitrarily explain. And we ain't trying to arbitrarily explain nothing. And I'm definitely ain't trying to convert you. I'm trying to show you that the mind is everything. It's the thought. So let's deal with it. John G. Jackson. This is John G. Jackson quoting our brother. So the editor, I just always like to read the preface of things. I always tell all students read preface. Peace, Noble. The editor of this journal has asked me to write an article on the eminent black free thinkers of Harlem Renaissance, 1917 and 1928. 1917 and 1928. Hold on, y'all. Yes. I'm in class. Alive. Yeah. Snacks. Whatever. Just come home. I don't care. All right. My fault, y'all. Peace, Noble. So, you got to understand that most readers are probably familiar with the names of Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes wrote of this Moorish legacy. Zora Neale Hurston, Claude McKay, James Weldon Johnson, Arthur A. Schomburg, Marcus Garvey, and A. Philip Randolph. Among the outstanding celebrities of this period was Hubert Henry Harrison. Yet today few people are aware of his life and work. And the author, which is John G. Jackson, had the good fortune to know Harris personally, so that he could draw on not only written sources, but also his own memory. Hubert Henry Harrison was born in St. Croix, Virginia Island on April 27, 1883. 1883. He died in New York City in December 1927. This extraordinary man was only 44 years old at the time of his death. He was an intellectual genius. And I don't toot my horn. This is what my professors, I've done the work. If these brothers was in the flesh, if Noble Drew Ali was in the flesh, if Dr. Henry Clifford Kelly, if all the scholars was gone, they'd be like, well, why are y'all tripping on this man? Like, this man did done the work that we did. Like, what's the problem? And in this short span, his achievements were so great that one wonders how they were accomplished. My late friend, Joel Augustus Rogers, J.A. Rogers. J.A. Rogers. I told y'all, man, all these scholars was all in time. J.A. Rogers published a short biographical sketch of Harris in his World's Great Men of Color. Y'all should have that. I gave it to y'all. Rogers was a personal friend and disciple of Harrison, and it saddened him to think that a great man like Harrison should be largely unknown. You see, that individuals of genuine worth and immense potent abilities who dedicated their lives to the advancements of their fellow men are permitted to pass unrecognized and unrewarded from the scene, with others inferior to them in ability and altruism receive acclaim, wealth, and distinction is common, yet it never ceases to stop all but the confirmed cynic. And what I'm saying, all the educators, all the ones that you know they died poor and broke. That's why I say, man, our people, they don't like education. Because when we talk about finances, this is what Negroes will say. Oh, you charge us for this, but you go to school, you go to the club, you go to the dispensary. This is a gift. You work, and I tell people you don't even have any tax deductions. This should be part of what you're doing. This is very simple. That's the only way we're going to build something. Who do you want to teach your kids and have the true temples and the true schools that can teach like this? Who? Those with a sense of right and wrong, of fitness and incongruity. Whether it be wise men or fools, will forever feel that this ought not be. See, Shakespeare was so little regarded during his lifetime that no one bothered to record the details of his life. And today, most of what is said about his pure, how can I say it? I don't even want to say what he was just saying, but his essence, what he saw in the times. You had writers like Greg Mendel, whose experiments were to revolutionize biology and agriculture, was practically unknown until 60 years after his death. Just like one of my professors was like, well, you known on the college campus. That's why I don't care to be known with my own people. That's why I'm okay being a great nobody. Because in my field, this is what I do. If y'all ever looked up Angelo Solomon, the first Moorish Mason, that's what I do. I teach those that want to be taught. And I get paid swell. Of course, there are some of genuine worth who do not die obscure and who do win gradually recognition while alive. But why are so many whom we feel really ought to be up, down? And why are so many who certainly ought to be down, up? Look at all our educators. They died poor and broke. Look at all of them. Not I. That's why I went to university. That's why I do it in real life. That's why I'm able to travel. That's why I have real supporters. That's why I have college professors that donate. It's not a black and white thing. They say, hey, man, we're not going to give our money to Uncle Sam. We're going to support you and help you get there. And I'll tell everybody, if the other man that y'all hate helping me, why not you? Because I deal with God's people, and God's people come from all shapes, all colors. I deal with God's people. Hubert Henry Harris is the case in point. Harris was not only perhaps the foremost African-American intellect of his time, but one of America's greatest minds. When brothers be talking about biblical history and this, man, you know you went to seminary. You know a lot of your preachers are not educated. You know they polyparroted. You know they cannot have a real intellectual conversation with me. You know it and I know it. Because the European know it. And if your brother or sister, if them brothers is lower level Masons, they definitely gonna lie. And when I come around, they're gonna have to identify. They're gonna have to shed the light out because I know what it is. At 32 degrees, it's nothing but snowman wisdom. See, they play with you. The European will tell you clearly that he or she is a son of a Muslim. These are big facts. But a Negro would only want to tell you that he's a widow's son. How? How? And no one worked more seriously and indefinitely or just hard, just with passion to delight his fellow men. None of the Afro-American leaders of this time had a saner and more effective program. And this is what the European tell us what the BBT have. How? Because they was at my dissertation. They was at my oral dissertation at Grand Canyon University. They all sat on their hands. I'm not saying this for no disrespect. I'm saying this from wisdom. And then the lower level 32 and 33 degree Mason, they know what it is. So why not my brother? So who lying to you? Damn sure not me. But others, unquestionably, his inferiors, they received the recognition that was his due. Even today, but a very small proportion of the Negro intellectuals has ever heard of him. Researcher in the World's Great Men of Color, Volume 2, page 611, in New York by J.A. Rogers. It was written in 1947. The reason for this neglect was explained by Rogers as following, and I quote eloquently with a silver tongue. Thanks, Noble. And I got my other phone up, and I got a lot of my friends, and I want to share this because some of my colleagues, some of my European, Albion colleagues, whatever, I have another whole system set up. And they're the ones that follow and give support and get the books. Because this is what we talk about in college. They the ones that support it. Like, why would we go anywhere else? Like, you alumni. And so that's the support I get from when I say, man, from people I deal with and people that I teach. I don't waste my time. I come back and do this as a donation for my brothers and sisters. I don't charge, I ask for donations when I teach. And I give you wisdom. I want everybody to be a part of something that's real. I want you to tell your friends, everybody. And then the business, what we do in business is proven. Because I have an undergrad in business. My undergrad is in business management with a minor in marketing sales and nonprofit business startup. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Research me. Harrison's lifelong enemy, like that of most scholars, was poverty. So here it is, these educated men was poor. Destiny set him into this world very poor. And if this were not enough, she gave him a critical mind and a candid tongue, a family to support, a passion for knowledge. On top of all that, a black skin, and sent him to America. Surely a more formidable stream of handicaps would be hard to conceive. This was in page 617. And that's why I tell people, I don't come from no poor stuff. In my father's house is many mansions. Everybody I deal with was like, man, this is who you're supposed to be. You your father's son. You Larry Goodman Bay. Like, what we're talking about? I told you, my will and Allah's will just had to unite as one. One reason Harrison is not better known is because he was a champion of unpopular causes. He was a great scholar, orator, and writer. He was a champion of labor, a foe of superstition, and an advocate atheist. Just like this with Negroes, and I love this part because watch how Allah worked. We was in class yesterday, and somebody did a comment in class and said, why we use Mason signs? Those are atheists. And I said, poor Tink Tink. Poor Tink Tink. Because Negroes all think something is atheist. I said, poor Tink Tink. They don't know signs and symbols. They don't know gematria. They don't know the sephirots. And that's the problem with us. We are just quote shit, excuse my candor, what we see on the internet. And the signs and symbols of the primordial man. That's what I say with our brothers and sisters. Our people are lost due to a lack of knowledge because we refuse to learn. How could you say the compass and the square is some damn atheist? Where do you get that goofy stuff from? That's just like saying from a lack of wisdom and from Eurocentric and Negrocentric propaganda, from a lack of wisdom, you say the swastika is something scary and don't know Hitler stole it. But where would you get that the compass and the square and all that circumscribes the world is some evil, is atheist? Why would a Negro or whoever say some idiotic stuff like that? And that's what I say, our people. We need to be slow to speak. We need to be very, very slow to speak. Because clearly, that tell you that they don't know the Gnostics of the biblical scriptures. Clearly, they don't tell you that Lucifer is the morning star. Clearly, they don't understand the hippocampus. They don't understand this, or the ram's horn. Clearly, my people are lost due to a lack of knowledge because we refuse to learn, and we caught up with spookism, and we don't deal with spookism over this way. That's just like a Negro saying the Baphomet is evil, and they don't understand that the Baphomet is Kabbalistic speaking. Temp, Hob, Abs, Abba. Eliseus Levi was nothing but a transcriber. We have to understand this wisdom. He was the champion of labor, all that, just like I am. At one of his lectures, he was asked why he rejected Christianity. And he replied that any rational black man who accepted Christianity must be crazy. As Harrison pointed out, that the Christian Bible is a slave master's book. And so, on that context, see, with me as an educator, as a scholar, I don't come from anger. I come from peace. He'll have to explain that because I can pull out truthness in the Bible. I understand that aspect in the Bible, but you're not going to prove the other side because a lot of people try to do program thinking, and I don't deal with program thinking. I show you both, and as a free thinker, as a God, you deal with the good and throw away the rest. That's what we're talking about, building a perfected man where you stand on your feet, and it's about the mind making a sound decision, not with nobody telling you, because that's not all truth of the Bible, but I understand your avenue. But no one's going to arbitrarily explain the science and the metaphysics of the biblical scriptures. Slavery is defined in numerous pages in Holy Writ, whereas anti-slavery is nowhere endorsed in the work. But that's not true. In the Christian pantheon, God is white, and so is Jesus, the Holy Ghost, and all the angels. That's not true. It's nowhere written in the biblical scriptures that Jesus is white and the Holy Ghost is white. That's not what we call is we've been taught wrong. Because you can't show me the no written word, because based off Daniel's prophecy, if the so-called Jesus, whatever, left with all this certain dark skin and all that, he damn sure going to come back the same way. And the so-called 12 tribes, the so-called Judah, you give me any map. I don't care, the New Testament, the Old Testament, look at it. That's the continent of Africa. I don't know what people talking about. So we deal with that false image. We deal with that Eurocentric, that Caesar Borgia. We deal with that, but we're not going to let that, how can I say, give us that program thinking. I'm going to open the light. What I do is shed light on it. I give you an aha moment. How are you going to say what I'm saying is not true? And I throw in Dr. Ben, Dr. Joseph Ben, and show y'all what I'm saying is true. And so people be like, I tell them, we arguing for nothing. And then all these brothers talk about, oh, their teacher was Dr. Ben. Well, I'll put the tape in. The only black member is the devil. That's what they say. But that is not what I promulgate. When I show you the first history, when I show you all that history, no, it's not. That's not true. That's propaganda. I call it Negro-centric propaganda. And then, yeah, he pointed out how pathetic it is to go to a Jim Crow church. I get that on Sunday and hear black people singing a hymn. I get that, asking God to bleach them whiter than snow. I get that. And how Negroes will sing some amazing grace and I don't have nothing to do with them. I understand that aspect too. So they might enter into the kingdom of heaven. But the Bible says you want the same thing on earth as it is in heaven. So what you think you got to enter? Just like somebody tell you they got to give you the Holy Ghost. How somebody going to give you something that you was born with? Another favorite hymn among black Christians is "You Can Have All the World, but Just Give Me Jesus." Harris argued that he would rather remain black and go to hell. After all, the devil and all his imps are black, and he would feel at home amongst black people. He said it would be a heat problem, but in due time, one would get used to it and perhaps enjoy it. Summing it up, he would say that he had no intention of bowing down, this is what he said, no disrespect to no one, to a lily white God or worshiping Jim Crow Jesus. That's his words. His candor sometimes infuriated the religionists, and riots occurred at his meetings. In the 15th anniversary number of The Truth Seeker, published in 1923, a picture of Hubert Harris appeared. The editor, George E. McDonald, tells of how Harrison, at an open-air meeting, denounced the churches for their, abetting of superstition. And that's what I do. Because the Bible don't testify to no fake Jesus. Ignorance and poverty, and made a plea for a birth control. A religious fanatic in the audience attempted to strike Harrison, but what he's saying that he wasn't with that. He wasn't with all that false stuff. At the age of 16, Harrison, as a cabin boy on a boat, made a world tour, and at the age of 17, he settled in New York City. He attended night school classes for a while. In the examination for a diploma, his marks was 100%. He was the only student with that grade. Harrison's knowledge for foreign languages enabled him to qualify as a special foreign clerk in the post office. After 4 years, he also lost a job on account of writing uncomplimentary articles in the public press about Booker T. Washington. By 1905, when he was only 22 years old, Harrison was highly regarded as a lawyer. In 1889, Edward C. Walker had organized the Sunrise Club, of which he was secretary until his death in 1931. Meetings of the Sunrise Club were held on Mondays every 2 weeks. But I can go on and on about this brother, man, which I don't want to, because I'm just illuminating pieces of history in 2 little small books. When I say, man, we have a long way to go. And just like Carter G. Woodson said, it is the miseducation of the Negro. And our preachers and our teachers are responsible. Like when I went to college, man, I promise you, all my professors was like, I know your church and sent you here. And then as I got to research and as I got to dealing with science and comedic science, everything was like, you have to create your own. And that's what we're doing here now. And so, man, I've been casting my net out for brothers and sisters to come join us, man, be a part of something. I mean, be a part of something that's real and build your library, because there's only one history, there's only one law. And you cannot arbitrarily explain law. You cannot arbitrarily spiritual history and spiritual science, because law governs all events and it must synchronize. It must synchronize. And we do have a nationality and a spirituality. I break down these laws. Write this down as we close. Declaration of Human Rights, Article 15. The House Joint Resolution 75. The SF 181 form. The religious rights of the indigenous people. And we can go on and on and on and on with the science, what we have the right to do. Don't you know, all in the mayor's offices, they know what Moors are? In 2012, all mayors signed the Declaration Proclamation. I told y'all, man, we have the Moorish Science Temple on Martin Luther King Street, been in the city of Flint forever. And I don't wish nothing bad on nobody, but if it closed down, if it go in foreclosure, I'm buying it. And I'm turning it to the Burning Bush Tabernacle Science Temple and School. It's no disrespect to no one. It's no disrespect. I told y'all, man, I just left my home city. So when I be telling people true facts, wait, let me see. I just left my home city when I told people how easy it is to just get property under my organization. Because we're tax exempt from the federal government, we just like any other church or anything. I told people this easy. These are vacant lots that I owned since 2019. And then I went and got a whole bunch more. So let me get back on Zoom with my tribe. We got a meeting. So let me jump on there. I think I'm on the wrong Zoom. But I love y'all, man. Support, hit me up, man. Check out our library. It's mypdfbooks.com. Also check out our new company. It's binditbooks.com. But mypdfbooks.com is books with the Z. Check out our other company, morrishaberdasher.com. Check out our tea company, My Sun Teas, where you can get all your herbal teas. Check us all out, man, and check out our temple and school webpage, bbtsciencetemple.com. And if you like the teachings, if you want any literature, man, and if you like what we're doing, small donations to Cash App $KG Bay. And do a monthly pledge of $40 and see all the wisdom and science you get. But I love y'all, man. Don't forget, you are somebody, and don't let nobody tell you no different. I love y'all, and peace. And let me